started. Here are the two caliper bolts we need to remove, one on top and one on the bottom. Time for brake maintenance. In this video, I will show you step by step how to replace your front brake pads the right way. Also, we're gonna be replacing the rotors. You don't need any fancy tools, just a little patience and a driveway. I will walk you through everything, including tips to avoid mistakes that could cost you later. Stick around to the end because I'm also dropping a few pro tricks to help your brakes last longer and stop smoother. Let's get started. Here are the two caliper bolts we need to remove, one on top and one on the bottom. This holds the caliper in place over the brake pad. They are usually a 13mm or 14mm socket depending on your model, and they might be a little tight if it's been a while since they were touched. Take your time, break them loose slowly, and remember, these bolts are the gatekeepers to your brake pad. Once they are out, you are halfway there. Should you put grease on the back of the brake pad? We are gonna be talking about that in just a moment. These bolts, they can be really tight. If they are giving you a hard time, a little penetrating oil and a longer range can go a long way. There is no need to force it and risk rounding them off. Right, now that the bolts are out, we can carefully slide the caliper off the rotor. Take your time here, don't let it hang by the brake hose. That could cause more damage. I like to rest it up on the control arm or hang it with a bungee cord if I need to. With the caliper out of the way, we can remove the older brake pads. These should slide right out, but if they are stuck, just give them a gentle wiggle or use a flathead screwdriver to pop them loose. You can already see the wear on these. They have definitely earned their retirement. Replacing them now will improve braking and safety big time. Quick tip: if one pad is more worn than the other, that could be a sign of a sticky caliper or uneven brake hardware. Something to keep an eye on. I'm gonna remove this part of the caliper by just pulling. You will see why in a little bit. Now that the old pads are out, I'm going to compress the caliper piston back into place. This step is super important. It creates the space needed for the new, thicker brake pads to fit in. I'm using a brake caliper compression tool along with one of the old pads to evenly distribute the pressure. This helps avoid damaging the piston surface. Take it slow and steady. You don't want to force it. If it is really tough to push in, it could mean the caliper is seized and you might need to replace it. But in most cases, it should go back in nice and smooth. Here is a little pro tip. Before you start this step, make sure to pop the cap off your brake fluid reservoir. Compressing the piston can push fluid back up into the system and you don't want to build up too much pressure. I'm applying a bit of high temperature brake grease to the caliper pins. This helps them slide smoothly and prevents uneven wear or sticking down the road. I'm also putting a thin layer of grease on the back of the brake pad where it presses against the caliper piston. This helps reduce vibration and those annoying squeaking noises that can show up later. Just a light coat is all you need. Don't overdo it, and definitely keep the grease off the pad surface or rotors. We want smooth braking, not slippery braking. And this is one of the Jeep Compass maintenance that every single DIYer should be able to do. Don't get scammed. Learn to fix it yourself. Subscribe now and your car will never control your wallet again. Alright, with the caliper and pads out of the way, we can slide off the old rotor. Sometimes they come off easy, and other times might need a few taps with a mallet if there is rust holding it in place. Here is the new rotor. Make sure to give it a good wipe with brake cleaner to remove any protective oil coating before installing it. Then we just line it up and slide it right onto the hub. A clean surface and proper seating are key for smooth braking and no vibration later on. As you saw in the video, with the rotor in place and the caliper with the brake pad ready, we're gonna go ahead and start putting it all together. Now we are reinstalling the caliper and tightening down the two bolts we removed earlier, one on the top and one on the bottom. Make sure everything is lined up properly and the pads are sitting in place. These bolts are what keeps the brakes secure, so make sure they are snugged up to the correct torque spec. If you don't have any torque wrench, just tighten them firmly, but don't go full Hulk on them. A little thread locker can also help prevent them from backing out over time, especially if you drive in rough conditions, but I prefer not to use that. Alright, let's do a quick final check before we put the wheel back on. Make sure the caliper bolts are tight, the brake pads are seated properly, the rotor spins freely without rubbing, and that no tools or parts were left behind in the wheel well. Take a step back to double check everything. It is always better to be safe now than sorry later. So now that we got this job done, we can talk about the most common symptoms of bad brake pads on your Jeep Compass. And the first one is gonna be a squeaking or squealing noise. The second one is gonna be grinding noise. 3 is gonna be longer stopping distances. 4, brake pedal vibration. 5, brake warning lights. 6, pulling to one side. 7, visible pad wear. If you check and you see that is wear, well, you need to replace it. 8, spongy or soft pedal. And 9, burning smell. If you're noticing any of these on your car, then definitely go ahead and replace those. Thank you for watching.